there's something really strange happening with Elder Scrolls 6. But not the game itself, and we barely know anything about the game. We've seen one teaser, a mountain, a logo, and that's basically it. But yet, people already know exactly what they want it to be. Over the last few days I really spent hours reading discussions from Elder Scrolls fans, on Reddit, forums and YouTube comments, and basically anywhere people were talking about this game, but at first I thought everyone would be saying the same thing. That they waited too long, or Bethesda isn't the same, and the Starfield killed the hype, but that's not what I found. And what I found was actually much more interesting because nobody seems to agree on what Elder Scrolls 6 should even be. One person says it needs the writing of The Witcher 3, another says it should bring back the RPG mechanics from Morrowind, and someone else just wants Skyrim with better graphics, others want Oblivion quests, Elder Rung exploration, and Kingdom Come immersion. And I really understand that everyone has their own version of the perfect Elder Scrolls game, and that's when something clicked. Maybe Bethesda's biggest problem isn't making Elder Scrolls 6 itself, but maybe it's the fact that millions of people are waiting for the complete different game. But the more comments I read, the weirder it became. Because in reality, nobody was really talking about the same thing. One guy said Bethesda needs to completely modernize the formula. The very next comment said Bethesda shouldn't change anything because that's what makes Elder Scrolls special. And some people wanted deeper role playing. Others said they didn't care about the RPG mechanics at all, and they just wanted another world to get lost in, like Skyrim. And I truly understand that some wanted more freedom, or more realism, and some wanted less procedural content, and others wanted a map twice the size of Skyrim. And the funny thing is, none of these opinions are wrong, they're completely valid, because everyone fell in love with Elder Scrolls for a different reason. If you ask someone why Skyrim is one of their favorite games ever, you almost never get the same answer twice. Because for one person it's the exploration, for another it was the music, and someone else spent hundreds of hours modding the game. And that's what makes Skyrim such a strange game. Everybody remembers it differently, and that's exactly what makes making a sequel so difficult, because Bethesda isn't following one experience, they're following millions. And there's another reason this conversation feels so different today. And funny enough, it has nothing to do with Skyrim, but has everything to do with Bethesda. Back when Skyrim released in 2011, Bethesda had the reputation that very few studios had. And people didn't just expect a good game, they expected the RPG of the generation. And sure thing, everyone joked about the bugs, flying giants or broken quests, and NPC doing completely ridiculous things, but somehow those bugs almost became part of Bethesda's identity, because underneath all those chaos was something people genuinely trusted, and nobody built worlds quite like they did. And when Bethesda announced a new RPG, people didn't spend months wondering if it was going to be good. They already assumed it would be good, and fast forward to today, that confidence just isn't there anymore. Fallout 76 damaged the reputation, and Starfield divided the community even more. And again, this isn't just about whether those games are good or bad, that's not really the point. The point is that something changed, people stopped giving Bethesda the benefit of the doubt, and now every trailer gets analyzed frame by frame, and every mechanic gets compared to another RPG, or every interview starts another debate online, and Bethesda isn't launching the Elder Scrolls 6 with the same trust they had back in 2011. They are launching it in front of an audience that just become much more skeptical. And honestly, that changes everything, because now Elder Scrolls 6 isn't just trying to be a great RPG, it's trying to convince millions of players that Bethesda can still deliver one. But the strange thing is, Bethesda isn't just competing against Skyrim anymore. In 2011, Skyrim became the benchmark. It was the game other developers look at when they wanted to build an open world RPG. And 15 years later, that role has changed, because while Bethesda was working on the Elder Scrolls 6, the rest of the industry kept moving. And one game redefined storytelling, another changed how players look at exploration, and other raised the bar for immersion, player choice, world design, and combat. And bit by bit, every major RPG left its mark on the genre, and without even realizing it, players started collecting these ideas. Now imagine asking someone what they want from Elder Scrolls 6. Every few people answer with just one thing. They want the freedom that made Skyrim unforgettable, the writing that made The Witcher 3 a modern classic, and the sense of discovery you feel wandering throughout Elden Ring, or the depth of role-playing from Baldur's Gate 3, and the living, breathing world of Red Dead Redemption 2. None of these expectations sounds unreasonable on their own. In fact, they are completely understandable, and the problem only appears when you put them together, because those games weren't trying to achieve the same goal. Each one became exceptional by focusing on what they did best, and they all succeeded because they knew exactly what kind of game they wanted to be. And the Elder Scrolls 6 doesn't have that luxury, because by the time it finally releases, it won't be just compared to Skyrim, it will be compared to 15 years of progress, and that's what comparison no game has ever faced before. But the more I worked on this video, the more I realized something. Maybe you've been asking the wrong question this whole time. People kept asking, can Bethesda still make a great RPG? And honestly, I think they can. But the real question is something much more difficult. Can any game survive 15 years of expectations? Think about it. When Skyrim released, nobody knew what it was going to become. And nobody had spent years imagining it. And nobody had built the perfect version of it inside their heads. It was just another game. And the Elder Scrolls 6 doesn't have that luxury anymore. And before anyone has even played it, people already knew exactly what they wanted to be. Some wanted to feel like Skyrim, others wanted something completely new, and some expect Bethesda to evolve, and others expect them not to change at all, and that's maybe an impossible part. Not making the game, but to realizing a game that can somehow compete with one of the millions of people have already imagined. Because imagination is perfect, but reality never is. And no matter how good the Elder Scrolls 6 turns out to be, there will be always someone comparing it to the version they have been building in their mind for the last 15 years. Not because Bethesda failed, but because reality can never beat imagination, and I think that's what exactly worries me, and not because Bethesda will make a bad game, but that they've been given an impossible job, and one that no developer has ever really had to face before. The strange thing about all of this is that none of this has happened overnight. It happened 1 year at a time, and every year without an Elder Scroll game gave people more time to reimagine what the next one should be. Every new RPG added another expectation, every replay of Skyrim changed another memory, and every discussion online created another wishlist. And eventually, the Elder Scrolls 6 stopped being just another sequel, it became an idea, almost a fantasy, something that looked slightly different depending on who you asked. But none of them are wrong, that's what makes this so fascinating. Because Bethesda isn't just building another world anymore, they're just trying to satisfy millions of worlds that already exist inside people's heads. And that's a challenge no developer has ever really faced before, not because the game has been in development for 15 years, but because people's expectations have. But expectations are dangerous. The longer they have to grow, the harder they become to satisfy, not because they are unrealistic, but because they slowly become personal. And everyone has their own Elder Scrolls 6 already. The problem is, only one of those versions is actually going to exist. And so, after reading hundreds of comments and looking back at Skyrim and thinking about everything what's happened over the last 15 years, I don't think I'm worried because of Bethesda anymore. I'm worried because I don't know if it's possible for any game to live up to 15 years of expectations. Back in 2011, Skyrim had something Elder Scrolls 6 will never have, a blank slate. And nobody knew what it was going to become. And it simply released and surprised people, and the Elder Scrolls 6 won't get that chance. The moment it launches, it will immediately be compared to Skyrim, and to every great RPG that came after it. But maybe that's still not the hardest comparison. Maybe the hardest comparison is the one happening inside our own heads. So maybe the real challenge was never making other Elder Scrolls. Maybe the real challenge was trying to create something that could live up to 15 years of imagination. And honestly, I hope they prove me wrong, because nobody wants this game to succeed more than people who spent over a decade waiting for it. And I would love to come back to this video after launch and laugh at how wrong I was. But until that day comes, I think the Elder Scrolls 6 has the hardest job that any RPG has ever had. Not because it's following Skyrim, but because it's following the version of Skyrim we all have been carrying on with us for the last 15 years. And maybe Bethesda isn't trying to build the perfect Elder Scrolls, maybe they're trying to build a game that could never exist in the first place.